view for you, and then Mike will jump in and give us a hand. All right, so let's get, I got my, I was trying to get rid of it. Let me see if I can get rid of this. I think the cord's gonna get in the way, but that's all right. All right, here we go. Sorry, guys. All right, so here's my digital scale. This is called a company called My Way, and this helps me dial in that percentage of flour to water, which is critical. I need this thing to be, our recipe calls for 70% hydration, and that just means my flour to water, my water is 70% of my flour. That's really all that means. 70% is high. It's not a beginner dough. It's so it's gonna be a little sticky. That's all I need. I'm using Cairnsprings. I'm gonna use Trailblazer today. This is a Trailblazer bread flour. It's a really high in protein, which we love, which also gives it the strength to hold up to like a 2 or 3 day fermentation. And Mike will tell us more about this in just a few minutes. I've got my scale zeroed out, and I'm gonna put in 500 grams of flour. And I put it into my big steel container here. These things are amazing. This contains all of my ingredients. I don't have to make a mess on my counters. That's my flour. I'm going to take my salt. I should use a fine sea salt. I'm using a coarse. That's all I have. I use 16 grams. I always like to put it in my hand first, just to kind of give you an idea. It's about the size of a silver dollar, maybe. That's half. And then with another half, that's a little bit more. Boom. That's 16. And now I'm gonna take my whisk. I'm just gonna kind of whisk it around. And I just give it a little shake, which is nice. Again, the skill level of this dough is not very high. It's probably 10 years old or even younger. But we did the homework of the flour and the recipe already. That's our salt. I whisked it to get my yeast. I'm using Freshman's active dry yeast here, okay? And I'm using 1 gram. And 1 gram, I want to show you on the side here. I'm using a micro scale, okay? So like this. A micro scale, turn it on. I like to use the lid, it's my, right? And my gram, I gotta zero it out. And 1 gram is like a micro amount. The big scale won't really pick this up. So we use a micro, which literally measures 1 to the 100th of a gram, which is like, that's like 0.97, which is, so I'm gonna put that in my hand. You can see it's a really small amount. I dump this in. This is 1/9 of those yeast packages that we see. It's 1/9 of those. And I'm again, whisk this around. I'm trying not to have my salt and my yeast kind of connect because it can kind of kill off the yeast. That's why I'm whisking it around. If I'm doing a really large batch of dough, I might dissolve my water first. I'm sorry, my salt in my water, just so I can really prevent that from happening. Or if I have a really important guest that's coming over, I'll take that extra step, right? And that's it. Those are all my ingredients whisked together. And now what I'm gonna do is grab some water. I like filtered water because I drink it that way. I'm gonna tear out my scale. Each scale is a button called TARE that essentially zeroes it out. And now I'm gonna pour my water in, which is 350 grams. It's about a cup and a third. I'm sorry, a cup and 3/4. So almost 2 cups of water. 350. And I can go a little bit, there you go. That's 348. So right on the money. And now I can put my scale away. And now what I'm going to do is take a bench scraper, right? Just kind of blend and like hydrate the flour. And I like these containers because I keep all the mess inside of here. And I might mix this and clean it out and then just put the dough back inside. But you can see my water's all kind of, the flour's already soaking up that water, which is nice. And then what I'll do is I might take about 1 or 2 minutes using one of my hands. I remember the chef's trick, right? Always keep one hand messy and one hand clean, or as clean as you can. That way, if I have to grab something, I'm able to grab it without like getting flour all over it, which I tend to do anyway, but that's the theory anyway. So now I just kind of put my hand in here and I scrape and I press. And all I'm really trying to do is press out all the dry clumps of flour in the dough. And really, this is it. Like, it's that simple. I do this for about 2 minutes. You can see it's starting to form one mass. And then after 2 minutes, I'm just pressing. I'm like using a little bit of like elbow power and just pressing all the flour and scraping underneath it, like to scrape the sides. And again, one hand clean, one hand dirty, right? Not much skill, just some strength, right? And organization, measuring, really less ingredients. And that's it, guys. I'm going to take this now. I'm going to take my do one more kind of press in. And that's it. That's my mess. That's my dough. Excuse me for 1 second. So I'll rinse my dirty hand off. So once I do that, I'm going to take my dough container, put my lid on it, and let me change the camera angle back. Go like this. Sorry, guys, technical difficulties here. And then I got my container. My dough's covered. I'm going to leave this, my temperature in here, it's summer. It's about 70 degrees, 72 degrees, room temperature for me. I leave this out tonight, overnight. I'll come in tomorrow, I'll take this container and I'll place it in the fridge, and that'll be my dough. I did this yesterday for us. And I ran out of baking steel containers. I'm gonna show you the inside of what I made. And I wish you guys could smell the aroma this is giving us. Give me 2 seconds here, boom. This is a 500 gram batch. You can see the holes, the fermentation process is starting. And then if I was to make dough or pizza, now I'll remove it and make my dough balls. I am going to continue fermenting this for another day or two. So I'm going to put this entire, in fact, I might even combine the batches of dough and make one big batch until tomorrow when I make pizza. It smells amazing. You can see the color is really nice. It's got this earthy color to it. It's gorgeous. And that's really it. That's the dough making process. So let's get back to this camera. And let's have, I'm gonna have Mike chime in here a little bit. But that's essentially our 72-hour dough. Now we call it a 72-hour dough because we think it's prime time on day 3. I could make this dough I just made yesterday is 24 hours. I could literally make some pizza with that or breads today. It'll be amazing. We just think after days 2 and 3, it creates a little bit more nuance and texture and flavor that it's the dream, but 24 hours is also great. And Mike, tell us about the flour.
Sure. So we're located in Skagit County, about an hour north of Seattle, and we fresh mill, we stone mill fresh flour from local grains. So we contract local farmers all in Washington State, most of them within 15 miles of the mill. 70% of the grain that we'll mill this year will be within 15 miles of the mill. Mm-hmm. All of the grain will come from within Washington State or Northern Oregon. And we're working to preserve the agricultural heritage of family farms in the Northwest and rebuild the local food system. And one of the things that makes our flours unique is that we select specialty varietals of grain that perform and grow particularly well in the climate environment of Washington State and the maritime climate of Skagit County. And we also select varietals of wheat that are exceptional for flavor and for performance. There used to be in the country there years ago, there were hundreds and thousands of varietals of wheat that were grown, uh, and they were mostly local to their particular regions and microclimates that they existed in. And over the course of the Industrial Revolution and the commoditization of flour and grain, the selection of varieties of wheat that were used narrowed dramatically, and they were focused on wheats that had high yield and not for flavor. So we are sort of going back in time and working with the Ag Extension program at Washington State University, and have selected varietals, working with a local organization called the Bread Lab. We've selected varietals that do particularly well in this climate and have exceptional flavor and baking performance. We're sort of doing to the wheat berry and to flour what Starbucks and Stumptown and the third wave of coffee did to the coffee bean. We're changing the perception of what flour can be, because flour can be additive. For years, many people thought of flour being this inert white substance that you made into something special. By selecting these special varietals for their flavor and their baking performance and their local terroir, we're actually showing that you can make something great with having flour being an additive ingredient that actually adds flavor and adds color to what you're making. So that's what's unique about what we do. And the varietals that we have are identity preserved. So if you buy a bag of our flour, there's a lot code on it. If you tell us what the lot code is, we can tell you where it was grown, what the varietals are, and what's unique about that flour. The flour that you're using today is our bread flour, which is we have two different bread flours that are regenerative conventional flours. We have Trailblazer and Glacier Peak. They both have the same varietals of wheat, your Coro Rojo and a Skagit Red, which are hard red spring wheats, means they're planted in the spring and they're harvested in late summer, early fall. And they're about 13% protein, so they do very well with an extended fermentation. They have the strength that you want to withstand the gas, the CO2 that's released in the fermentation process. And they're T85 and a T70 flour. And what that refers to is the amount of sift that there is in making the flour.
So just the sift, I mean, that's the only difference.
The only difference is the sift. So
Wow.
the T85 is less sifted. It's a higher number. So that means there's more bran and more germ. So let me back up for a second. In a wheat berry, there are three components. There's endosperm, which is the starchy white powder that we think of as flour.
Mhm.
There's the germ, which is the embryo, which has the oil, natural oil, and the highest mineral content in the wheat berry.
Okay.
And there's the protective coat, which is the bran. And the bran has fibers and also has a lot of minerals. And most
Can
commodity,
you eat the bran? Can you eat the bran?
yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So most commodity flours remove as much bran and germ as possible to have a very inert, shelf-stable product that can be on the shelf for 2 to 3 years.
Oh, interesting.
We stone mill and we intentionally retain as much of the germ and the bran as possible, because that's where the flavor and the natural nutrition exists. So in the scale that goes from the measurement of mineral scale, which goes from 0 to 150. So like a whole grain flour will be like 150 or 170, T150 or T170. And looking at the scale, we believe that to preserve the functional performance that is consistent with what you expect for a white commodity flour, but it had as much flavor and natural nutrition as possible, we think a T85 is that level where you still have the functionality of a conventional flour, but you have as much flavor and natural nutrition as possible.
Amazing.
And so the Trailblazer, the T85, the Glacier Peaks, a T70. So there's just a sift difference is the only difference between those two.
Guys, can you
get a little
for a second? Like he's just talking about these two flours, and I didn't know this either. The only difference is the sift, right? Just the
Yep.
sift, that's it. Crazy. And then micro, obviously, these is there anything specific about that? Is it just like how you strain a flour?
I'm sorry, what would you ask that again?
Like the sift, like explain the sift, like it, so it goes through one extra channel or one extra.
So we in the process of the mill, the wheat berries go through a roller mill, then they go to a sift, and the sift are these containers that have multiple screens in them.
Gotcha.
And we use a screen that has a different larger or smaller opening depending upon the amount of sift that we're going to do. So it lets less stuff or more stuff through. So it goes from a roller mill to a sift canister to a stone mill, back to the sift, back to the stone mill, back to the sift, back to
Geez,
the stone mill for a third time, and it goes to finished flower silo at that time.
that's amazing. And guys, like, it's hard to, unless you've tried one of these, like we call them like craft flowers, right? Or artisan, or I used to say micro mills. And they're a big company, but it's unbelievable the difference between using this type of flower. And I'm not knocking any store brand flowers, but those things sitting on the shelf at your local market typically take time to get there, probably months to get there to finally make it to your shelf. We're talking getting this stuff really quick. Like some of this flower I received a month ago was milled like a month ago, right? Is that correct, Mike? Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Huge difference. And it's unbelievable the difference between using like a flower like this. And I really urge everyone, and luckily Michael has been generous enough. We're going to pick 3 random people that are here today and send them some flower. I think a bag of each. Am I right, Mike?
Was it a bag of Trailblazer and a bag of Glacier Peak? And we'll also
Yeah.
send a bag of one of our all-purpose flowers, the Sequoia.
Yes. So we got some lucky winners here today too. So thank you, Mike, for doing that. It's gonna be random selection. But I urge you, if you don't win, to go on their site and buy some, because you might think it's pricey because, and Mike, what does a bag cost? Is
5-pound bag is like $17.99 on the website.
$17, guys. It might cost you $10 to ship it. I'm just making up a number because I know it's different.
Free shipping with any order over 50.
Okay, so if you buy 50 pounds, it's free shipping.
$50.
Right? Over $50.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so buy 3 bags and man, you're getting free shipping. That's unbelievable, by the way. Even if you're paying for the shipping, and it sounds like, oh my God, first of all, this is 5 pounds, which is a big bag. But 2, when you divide, I can probably make, let me have the grams in there. I can make 5 pounds, like 10, probably like 20 doughs, 20 pizza doughs. So, I mean, it's really less than $1 a dough, which is crazy. To think the quality that you're going to have at home is just literally going to blow away anything you've had in the past. So I urge that. So sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to get that out.
Okay. So there's some questions coming. Should we?
Yeah, let's jump in. You guys are great. So we got the dough. Mike's here. Ask away. I'm going to read. If I missed it, please get back to him. We'll get back to the questions right away, but some were regarding the pizza dough. So Mike, someone said, why choose one of your flours over the other for pizza? Your website recommends both. Good question.
So our bread, so within our line of flours, our bread flours are going to be best because of the higher protein, which will have a better gluten development, which will do better with the fermentation. So that means I'd recommend either the Trailblazer or the Glacier Peak are our go-tos, but the espresso also works well. It's our highest protein flour. It's organic. It's a great flour as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Compared to other pizza flours that are out in the marketplace, generally speaking, we're going to have more flavor and better baking performance. Now, one thing I didn't touch on, I want to mention, is that because we have more bran absorbs hydration, so you're going to want to use a little more hydration than you might normally use if you're using a more supermarket purchased commodity flour.
So you
we'll
think
have
our 70% recipe here, you could bring up to like 75 or 72. Yeah.
I'd say
70. It's been great, but I could
70 to 72 is the sweet spot.
Okay. Oh, good. Great. We're there.
Yeah.
We're there with this recipe then. We got lucky. All right. So, and someone asked, what kind of scale is this? I'm using a digital scale. It's a brand called My Way. You can search that on Amazon and just look for a digital scale, something that you like the looks of. They're good. It's a good brand though. They stick by their products. And then someone said organic espresso probably makes some great bagels. Is that fair, Mike?
It makes very good bagels. It makes great artisanal sourdough loaves. Makes good tortillas.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
We do a lot of business direct to consumer online and through Amazon, and we have 100 stores in the Northwest that sell our flour.
Oh,
But
wow.
most of our business is food service, so we sell to bakeries and
Mhm.
pizzerias up and down the West Coast and some in New York. And the most popular flour for commercial bagels is the Glacier Peak.
Oh, interesting. Awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
we winners gonna get that today, so that's cool. But I've been using it for breads and pizza, and it's phenomenal.
yeah,
And we touched on this a little bit in our previous conversation, Mike, about, I had mentioned how I feel like when this isn't me, this is the science, but when you ferment bread for 2 or 3 days, our body digests it much better because the gluten is breaking down over time. And you had mentioned something else on your farms that you guys do is there's a buzzword in today in farming called glyphosate. And it's hitting it hard. It's not good for us. I know that
yeah.
it's a beast and not good for our systems. Can you go into that a little bit with what you talked about?
Sure. But glyphosate is Roundup, and glyphosate is an herbicide that also is sometimes used in commercial wheat growing as a harvest aid. As an herbicide, what it does is it browns out and dries out the weeds.
Mhm.
So traditionally, not traditionally, but a lot of commercial farmers use glyphosate. They spray the fields a week or two before they're going to harvest, so that it dries out the wheat uniformly.
Wow.
Glyphosate is Roundup, and it's not meant to be
Roundup,
ingested.
guys. Chemical.
And there's an emergent body of medical science that suggests that there are certain people who have gluten intolerance, but some people actually have chemical intolerance to the amount of residual glyphosate that there is in our food system. And so when you hear people, I've had people say they go to Europe and they can eat European flour, pizza, and bread, but they can't eat it in the US. And that's because glyphosate is not allowed in many EU countries. So there's no Roundup. So that's a big issue. And all of our farms are regenerative. About 70% of the flour that we sell is regenerative conventional. The other 30% is regenerative organic. And we have certain requirements for our regenerative or conventional farmers. And one of those is they can't use glyphosate as a harvest aid.
That's amazing. That's incredible, guys. And all right. Here's a question. Are the flowers available in stores or online? I know we talked about that, but then there's a second part. Do you recommend it be refrigerated or stored in a freezer rather than a pantry? Like, what's the good storage?
Yeah, we're fresh flour. I mean, flour is best when fresh, and it's best to refrigerate it or put it in the freezer. Either works.
Oh,
We have in our retail bags or our consumer package bags that we sell online. They're
here,
they're
like,
pl- they're yep yep
and
they're
by the way,
plastic.
guys, these are self-sealed. Brilliant, right? You don't have to make the big mess when you open up those flaps. It's incredible.
And they have about a 2-year shelf life because the bags are plastic.
Mhm.
So they have about a 2-year shelf life. Our 50-pound bags are 3-layer paper,
Oh, wow.
and they have about a year shelf life because the bag is more permeable to oxygen and the environment. So they have about a year shelf life.
Amazing. And if I'm just going through with a bag and I make, like, say I make a batch of dough a week, I can leave this at room temperature. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So you can leave your flour at room temperature, guys. So,
Yep.
and how long is the freshness on a bag of flour? I think you covered that a little bit there.
We have a 2-year shelf life from the date of milling, and we total turn our inventory about once every 3 or 4 months here at the mill. So if you're ordering online, you'll be getting flour that's anywhere from 1 month old to 6 to 8 months on the long side, but you have a full 2 years.
That's amazing. Okay. And I have a pizza question. I'm having a difficult time launching. When I stretch the dough and then put it on the floured peel and add the toppings, it sticks quite a bit. It will be sliding before topping, but it seems like to get sticky. Okay. So if someone's getting sticky, just a pizza question here. Sorry. Wood peel,
Yeah.
I hope. Wood peel is great. Dust it. And I just say, first of all, less is more on top. Just be mindful that you don't load it up because you don't want all that moisture sipping through the dough and getting stuck peel. Just make sure it's loose like a hockey puck. And we'll do a Pizza 101 class again or Pizza Hangout to kind of cover that. If you have any real problems, send me an email, andres@bakingsteel.com, and I can send you a video that might help explain that a little better. To really nerd out, what is the W rating? Mike, can you answer that? That might be directed
Yeah,
to you.
so W comes from an alveograph, which is
Oh,
a measurement of flour, and W is strength. So a high W rating tends to be a stronger flour, and a lower W rating is not as strong a flour, and it
I
comes from
didn't
the
know. Does every,
alveograph.
does every flour have a W rating?
Every flour, not every flour has been measured to know what the W rating is.
Okay.
But if you pay to have an alveograph done, and it's more in European flour, so it's very common when we talk in the U.S. much more about protein levels
Mhm.
and falling numbers.
Sure.
Are the things that are used more generally when you talk to bakers, pizza makers in the U.S. But if you were to go to talk to a pizzeria maker, pizzola in Italy, they would talk about W. So
Ah,
it's about flour strength. So in the
and
U.S.,
that
we talk
means,
more about protein.
so higher
And
protein is a higher W, basically?
yeah,
Oh, interesting. I must start using the W. I think it sounds cooler than protein. Uh, what flour do you recommend for a sourdough bread?
the Trailblazer and Glacier Peak and our organic espresso are amazing.
Yeah, I can vouch for that, guys. I made some bread last week. It was incredible. Like, in fact, I put it on my Instagram like 3 or 4 posts ago, but I had it hot and I was trying to break it like in half, this big loaf. Took me a couple of seconds, but I did it. Wait, I mean, it popped open. Man, it was just incredible. Like, bring on the olive oil and the butter. It was perfect. Um, so ZJ, I put semolina on the peel and don't. Okay, that's a good idea for peels. Yes, used in Europe. What brand of yeast better than another with your flour? Mike, do you have an answer? Do you have any answer on that one? That's interesting. So just what we use for our dough recipe, I recommend is an active dry yeast. This is Fleshman's, available at almost any market. We're using a micro amount. Do you have any input on yeast, Mike?
I don't, aside from making sure it's fresh,
Yeah,
fresh.
sure. Okay, good point. Make sure it's fresh.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, keep it in your refrigerator, obviously.
Yep. Okay, we do that. And then above comments, 30% water to flour. Correct. So our recipe was, so when they say 70% hydration, that means whatever the flour amount is, that's your base, right? That's the main component of the recipe. And then everything else is based on that. So water would be, if you want a 70% hydrated dough, and use 100 grams of water, that's using 100 grams of flour, that's 70 grams of water. And the nice thing about having the hydrations and those percentages, you can scale it up or down at will. So if I know I'm making pizza for 20 people, I can do the math, right? I want 2,000 grams of dough times 70%, which would be 1,400 grams of water. That'd be 3,400 grams total. Which again, do the math, that's 10 doughs at 340 grams each, right? That's just a good, nice way, round way of doing the numbers. So all we do is we add the ingredients up and we divide. Give it a try with fresh yeast. Aromas are incredible for pizzas. Yeah, I mean, yeast is great. Fermentation's amazing. It's like we were talking before, I think, class, and I've made dough, guys. I would not exaggerating, at least once a week for the last 10 years. No joke. And more than that. I came in this morning to the studio. I made this dough yesterday. The first thing I did, I came in, opened the lid up and gave this thing a whiff because it's unbelievable, the aroma. It's so beautiful and it's almost like magic. And I don't know why I feel that way. Does anybody else feel that way? Is it just me? Put it in the comments there. It's incredible. So any more questions? This is it. Yeah, I love it. It is magic, right? Thank you, Oren. Mike, anything else you want to add in? And then tell us where we can find you and all that good stuff.
I would just add that put your hands in the dough and relax, don't worry, have a homebrew was a book, the model that I use when I used to homebrew. It's the same thing for making pizza and making sourdough bread. It's just time on task, just do it again and again and again, and you'll dial it in. With our
Yeah.
flour, you can geek out a little bit once you start with a Trailblazer or Glacier Peak and dial in your recipe. and then try blending flours for unique flavor. We have
Yep.
whole grain rye, whole grain bread flour. We have different flours which have different flavor. I'd always use the 70% or more of the Trailblazer Glacier Peak, but mix in 20 to 30% of some of the other flours for different
It's
flavor
great.
nuance.
Yeah. Love it.
A couple of people have asked, we have a rye flour that's out of stock. We're just transitioning our whole grain rye flour, transitions from conventional to organic this year.
Oh, interesting.
And we're currently out of stock. Well, we've used up all of our conventional, and the organic is coming in, and we should have it back in stock in about 4 to 5 weeks. So be patient with us. We're getting there.
That's great. Yeah, it's nuts, guy. And I can't state this, but like, it's incredible. Like, I'm actually pretty new to this product. I use central milling, which I love too. I'm new to this product. I know I visited like Bianco's in Arizona, one of my favorite spots on the planet. And I know he uses this flour, and it's just so good. And, you're going to amaze, if you aren't already amazing your guests when they arrive, if you're using the 72-hour dough, even with like store-bought flour, it's good. But when you change and you practice and you make it with this other stuff, it's like next level, like goodness. You don't want to open up a pizzeria. Again, 3 of you here today are winning, probably announced tomorrow. I'll send an email out to the 3 folks. Thank you guys all for coming here, first of all, but 3 people are going to win a batch of flour, which you're going to just love. And hopefully you'll talk about it and talk about these guys, but it's nuts. It's so good. Someone's asking the scale again. That's called My Way. That's the brand, My Way digital scale. Search on Amazon. They're everywhere. They're great. It's a really good product. Thank you. Last one was amazing. Make a Reuben pizza. That sounds incredible. You guys are great. Well, you guys, thank you for being here today. Mike, thanks for going. Do you have anything else, Mike? You guys on Instagram, social media, all that?
Yeah, we're very active. We have a newsletter that we send out a lot of great recipes. Check out our website. There's a great video when you land on the website that tells our story better than I've told it today in terms of the impact we're having, the difference we're making, and what makes our flours unique. And try some of our flour and use a baking peel.
Yeah, baking steel, right? Yeah, that's it.
Steel.
That's it. Awesome. You guys are great. Thank you, guys. Mike, thanks for being here today too.
Thanks.
Web address, Mike, what's your web address?
Cairnspring.com.
Yeah, and I'll spell that out, guys. This will be in the email too when it comes out tomorrow. Cairnspring, that's it.com, right?
Yep.
You guys rock. Tell your friends. I hope you win. And I want to know. I want to hear about the pizzas after you try this flour. Next level.
Send us some pictures.
Yeah, pictures are great. Tag us both. That's awesome. Good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Anders,
Mike.
thank you.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you. Bye.
Flour power.
Flower power.
See you.
Bye.